Coming up, ESA commits to the International Space Station.
LIGO turns back on.
I talked to Justin Park about Space World.
All that and more on this episode of Tomorrow. Welcome to Tomorrow. This is 9.40 for December 10th, 2016. I can't even believe we're coming to the end of 2016. For sure, the first couple of shows of 2017, I'm still going to say 2016, knowing me. I am your host, Carrie Ann, and joining me shortly will be Jared and Mike. But first and foremost, I want to thank our Patreon Premier members. These are the people who have given us $10 or more for the segment of this episode. They also get access to our Slack channel, which is always a lot of fun. You get to see really weird conversations, and you get first look at some of the stuff that we're doing for Orbit 10. And most recently, you also get to hear my lovely voice for a completely different show. Not confusing at all. In any case, I want to make sure that we get started as we always do with these shows. And I'm being reminded to remind you that if you would like to be on this particular slate, that you should be donating to patreon.com/TMRO. How's that?
Sounds good.
That's how my director lets me know that I can move on, is just staying on that slate. Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, joining me now is Jared and Mike, and we have so many launches to talk about because, like we talked in last week's show, tons of launches in 2016, and this week is no exception. We have 4 right off the bat. If I was counting correctly, I could be wrong, though. Mike, get us started. What's going on? What's the first one up?
Well, let's just go right in order of when these happened. First off, we have a Vega launch, which launched Göktürk 1. Let's check out the footage.
I thought you were swallowing on that name for a second. It is Göktürk 1, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is Göktürk 1, and this launched on the 4-stage solid rocket booster Vega, and it launched on Monday, December 5th at 13:51 Coordinated Universal Time from French Guiana. And the Göktürk 1 is a Turkish spy satellite, and it was put into a polar orbit 435 miles up, or about 700 kilometers, and that's a stock photo of it right there. So congratulations to Arianespace for this successful launch, and it's always nice to see those Vega launches going up.
So are we thinking Arianespace because they own this one? I'm kidding.
Yes,
kidding. We totally
yes.
had that debate last week. I know. I don't actually want to reopen that one, but it kind of
I'm
made me
chalking
laugh.
this up as a European launch.
Good. Close enough. All right.
Why? Why?
This is what happens when you put me in charge. So we also have a PSLV launch. Is that correct?
That's correct, and this was launching from India. This was on Wednesday, December 7th. And there was 2 launches that day, so
awesome.
Let's check out the footage for this launch.
3, 2, 1, 0, +1, +2, +3, +4, +5, +6.
I always love
This
to
took
see it
place
come
at-
off of the trees like that. It's so cool.
Absolutely. Coming out of the jungle there from Sriharikota Island and the Satish Dhawan Space Center. This launched at 4:55 Coordinating Universal Time, and it was the PSLV XL launch vehicle, which has 6 solid rocket boosters and a solid core, and then it has a liquid second stage, a solid third stage, and a liquid fourth stage. And what you're seeing on screen is its payload, the ResourceSat 2A mission, which is going to be tracking agriculture, water resources, soil contamination, and the growth of Indian cities. So congratulations to India for that successful launch as well.
Totally, congratulations. You said 6 solid, a solid core, 6 solid boosters, a solid core, a liquid second stage, and a solid, which is a ton of solids. That's like...
Yeah, it kind of goes, it leapfrogs, though, from the whole liquid and solids
right,
thing. You know, it has
solid,
a
liquid, solid,
first
liquid.
stage.
That's,
Yeah, it's awesome.
that is awesome. Don't get me wrong. Somebody in the chat room, where was it? Scooch says need more solids, which is really what it kind of helps it like leap right off the pad. Is
Yeah. I bet Ben likes
And
it
it's
with all the
interesting, too,
solids.
when it takes off the pad, only 4 of the solid rocket boosters are firing. And then after it's launched, then the other 2 will fire after it clears the tower and everything like that. So it doesn't even use all 6 of the solid rocket boosters at once. It's an interesting way that they fly the PSLV, for sure.
I like the sort of like skirt configuration there. Like it sort of, I don't know, has a cool like at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
It's symmetrical.
and you said there was another one going on, or that happened on December 7th. Is that right?
Yeah, this was the second one of that day, and this was a Delta IV launch. Let's check out the footage of this one.
4. We have engine ignition. 2, 1, and liftoff of the United Launch Alliance Delta IV rocket carrying the WGS-8 mission for the United States Air Force.
That just goes to show you that rockets never, I mean, they go on time essentially, but you're like 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Just leave already.
I figure it's a little difficult to tell because the Delta IV first lights itself on fire and then it launches.
And this one was a little bit different, too. This was a Delta IV Medium Plus, which you saw the 4 solid rocket boosters and them separate away. And this launch took place at 23:53 Coordinated Universal Time from Cape Canaveral. And the Indian launch earlier happened at 4:55 Coordinated Universal Time. And as he said, this was the wideband global SATCOM 8 satellite, which is a communications satellite for the United States Air Force. So I love Delta IV launches, and this was another great one. And I'm just so excited for that launch, and some of that footage too, especially some of the smoke there where you just get this nice, beautiful plume. Just the footage coming out of ULA now have improved so much this year. I'm really loving it.
Yeah. All right, and you said one more launch? This is great.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make Mike dance here the whole first segment of the show.
This is a launch that I've been looking forward to all year. This was a Japanese launch, the Japanese H-2B rocket, which launched the 6th HTV cargo vehicle, which is going to rendezvous with the International Space Station on Tuesday. Let's check out the footage.
1, the engines igniting, the solid rocket boosters, and liftoff. The H-2B has cleared the tower, the 6th HTV vehicle on its way to the International Space Station.
This happened yesterday, Friday, December 9th at 13:26 Coordinated Universal Time from the Tanegashima Space Center. And the HTV-6 is delivering quite a bit of cargo to the International Space Station. It's about 9,080 pounds or 4,119 kilograms, including some new lithium-ion batteries for the space station, as well as new parts for their carbon dioxide scrubbers, which has been a little bit faulty lately. I mean, they're still working just fine, but they've been having some hiccups with that. So that's some very important equipment they need to bring up there to the space station, as well as lots of food and other supplies as well. So congratulations to JAXA for that successful launch, and looking forward to the rendezvous and berthing with the space station on Tuesday.
So a couple of things really quickly. You said that you were looking forward to this launch all year. Why is that?
Well, just because this was a Japanese launch, and with this, Japan now has 3 launches so far this year. And I really like their rockets because they were actually derived from the Delta II rocket. And the H-2B actually has a wider diameter that's a little bit closer to the Delta IV size. It's 5.2 meters in diameter. And it also has 4 solid rocket boosters as well. So they fly it in a different configuration, and they manufacture it completely in Japan, and it's all used with domestically made parts. But the original plans was based off of the Delta II, and they were able to use the Delta II under like a contract that they had with Boeing at the time to manufacture it in Japan, and then eventually started making their own improvements and became its own rocket. So I really like the Japanese launches, though, and especially for this, having another cargo flight with the Japanese flight, with the Russian flight that failed recently. This was definitely needed, and the new batteries and new parts for the carbon dioxide scrubber is something I've been, slightly nervous about for a little while. So that alleviates my fears that that'll be taken care of very soon.
Good, good. And then a couple comments from the chat room. Siderite says how different rockets are in terms of visuals, at least. The wide exhaust of the Indian rocket, the different configurations, how some just start off really slow liftoff and others just go whoosh, which that's exactly what I was trying to say. And then Dan TC24 said, I thought all Delta 4s, except for the Heavy, were retired. Mike, can you speak to that at all?
No, the Delta IV is flying in all of its different available configurations. And this one had the 5-meter payload fairing, but they also have another type that uses the small solid rocket boosters without the other large liquid boosters for the Delta IV medium sizes, where they can have a 4-meter payload fairing or a 5-meter payload fairing, and also different numbers of solid rocket boosters, just like United Launch Alliance offers with the Atlas V. So all of the different configurations of Delta IV are going to continue to fly at least until their new Vulcan rocket is operational and has different configurations available for their customers. So don't worry, Delta II is retiring, and I think we had the last launch. There might even be one more launch of Delta II, but Delta II is retiring. But all the configurations of Delta IV are going to remain active until at least Vulcan comes online.
Interesting. All right.
I think the Delta IV.
Ben, there we go.
I think the Delta IV retiring. I know the voice from off
Exactly.
back. I think the Delta IV retiring comment comes from where Tori Bruno was talking about some of the competition and how they may have to retire the Delta IV in everything but its Heavy configuration. But they never actually executed on that. That was just them talking about things.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very
Perfect. Thank you, voice from the unknown. Okay, so I'm going to make my dance a little bit longer. So speaking of launches or not launching, rather, or possible launching?
Rather a pending launch, yeah. Something that some of us have been looking forward to is SpaceX's return to flight. And there was some recent announcements that they had a December 16th slot at Vandenberg Air Force Base to launch the Iridium Next satellites, the 10 of them. And that date has actually been pushed back until at least January because SpaceX is waiting for clearance from the FAA. They published a very brief anomaly update on their website, on SpaceX.com. And with this, just like it says, they're continuing to look into the investigation of the explosion on September 1st and have been waiting clearance for that. But as long as they get clearance from the FAA, they can proceed with this launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base. And hopefully that does go off right. But doesn't look like they're going to be able to return to flight this year unless a miracle happens in the next few days, which let's not keep our hopes up.
Right. It's one of those things that you want to be better safe than sorry, and these things take time. You've got to get it right. We've seen that time and time again, sadly, in the last couple of years with a couple of different organizations. But like I said, all ships rise to the tide, and you just want to rockets are not easy. Man.
No, they're not. If rockets were easy, everyone would be doing that.
There you go. Exactly. All right. So, Jared, let's go in a slightly different direction.
Yeah, we're going to go
Take me off this world, would
Okay,
you?
we're going to go to the outer solar system real quick because the Cassini mission is
Real
soon-
quick. Ready?
So, yeah, here we go.
Okay.
We're there. So the Cassini mission has entered a new phase called ring grazing orbits.
And what is the Cassini mission? What are they?
Cassini is a NASA and European Space Agency collaboration with a mission out at Saturn. So this mission was launched in 1997.
Ooh.
And it arrived at Saturn in 2004, and it's been operating there since.
I also arrived in 1997.
Did you?
I did.
That's
no,
amazing.
1977. Sorry, not 97. That wouldn't make any sense.
That's a bit more
I just got
Voyager
really excited. Go on.
Than Cassini. So,
Perfect.
I was going to say, Cassini launched when I was in 3rd grade. So just to put that into some perspective. You okay, Ben?
Ben's guffawing on this side.
Okay.
Whew,
So
all right.
it started a new phase in its mission called ring grazing orbits.
Awesome.
So
what does that do then?
These are orbits that graze the rings.
Yeah.
If you can believe it or not, that's what they're actually doing.
But I mean, I don't understand. So you've got the planet, and then you got the rings.
Yes.
And then this does
these
what?
orbits. So
does it go around the ring this way?
So it's going in a polar orbit around Saturn, and in fact, it's returned some of its first images from this polar orbit.
Okay.
Which this is the hexagon storm at the northern hemisphere.
This is so cool.
At the North Pole of Saturn, and that storm forms like that just because of the way the jet streams converge in that area. So it's really cool that it makes like this perfect hexagon at the North Pole. And getting this kind of detail is pretty amazing. But these orbits are essentially getting very close to the rings. Usually Cassini was kept away from the rings because you don't want it close to the rings because, you know,
you don't want it to collide with the rings and all the stuff in the rings?
Okay. Yeah, you don't want it to smash in the bits of the rings.
Yes.
But now it's getting closer. And it started that on November 30th. So just just about, you know, about 2 weeks ago, somewhere in there.
Is this because Cassini's coming to the end of its mission?
Yes, it is coming to the end of its mission. And eventually in April, they're going to do a flyby of Titan, the largest moon of Saturn. And that is going to send Cassini into these orbits that will actually put Cassini between the gap between the cloud tops of Saturn's atmosphere and the inner rings of Saturn's rings. So it's got this very narrow area that they're aiming it for.
Okay, when you say very narrow area,
Yes.
because Saturn's really big.
Yes.
How narrow are we talking?
15,000 kilometers.
Okay.
So,
Like my car would fit there.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. But I think the
checking.
Tesla could orbit straight through there.
Just want to make sure.
Really quickly. We
Okay.
could even put an ion engine on it.
But so when you say, but you still called it very narrow. How is that considered to be very narrow?
Well, it's very narrow because nobody's ever attempted to do this before.
Okay.
At any planet ever.
Okay.
They've never attempted to try to squeeze in between the cloud tops and the interior of the rings.
Okay.
So this is pretty, I don't want to call this frightening,
Right.
But it's, you know, we're going to find out whether there's any little bits of stuff in that area because basically Cassini would collide with it if there is something there.
Okay.
But they're doing that to end the mission. That'll start in April. That's going to continue all the way until September. And then eventually they're going to actually dispose of Cassini by having it burn up in Saturn's atmosphere. So they're going to basically do like a plunge into the atmosphere and then dispose of it that way. That way, because we don't want it to contaminate the moons around
Okay, that
Saturn.
was my next question. I
Yes.
was like, why?
Because
Why do that?
It was
then?
not built to the standards of cleanliness that things like Mars rovers are designed. And because we found places like Titan and Enceladus, which could potentially harbor life or have what we call prebiotic conditions, so the conditions that could arise life later on in the history of the solar system, we don't want to mess up those areas because Cassini is not clean enough.
Is that like
if you
prime
will.
directive kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like NASA-style prime directive. Basically, we got to get rid of it because, you know, it's not going to work out so well if it does end up colliding with those places.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
All right. Very cool. Yay, we all learned something today.
I love all the images that Cassini has brought back though over all the years that it's spent at Saturn. I mean, that's where we've gotten all of these HD, you know, pictures and video of Saturn over the past couple of years, and just awesome mission. It's gonna be sad when it's over, but just the wealth of data available is so mind blowing. Yeah,
the fact that it's done 13 years of observation at Saturn, that is just fantastic. More than we could have ever hoped for. So.
Vex Hedrum in the chat room is pulling a nice comparison for me. It says it's like flying between the Earth and the GPS satellite constellation.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, pretty good comparison.
Do we know why it's a hexagonal sort of storm going on?
It's the way that the jet streams all converge in that area.
Yeah.
We've actually been able to replicate it in the laboratory. Like if you go back to the pictures, basically it's this. So these pictures, there's 4 different photos here at 4 different wavelengths of light, which show basically 4 different patterns in the clouds that are there.
Interesting.
So even though it's hexagonal in some wavelengths of light, it's actually spherical in other wavelengths of light, like we would expect to find on a storm here on Earth, if you will. So it's basically the jet streams all coming together at just the right angles that allow it to form this hexagon.
Interesting.
And like I said, we've actually replicated this in the laboratory. We've been able to show that this is not some kind of alien kind of thing. This is an actual natural phenomena that can occur if you have the right conditions, which Saturn has.
Nice. Very cool. All right. Yeah. Mike, I hope you've been rested. Take a little moment off.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the International Space Station and the European Space Agency.
Yeah, so the European Space Agency and the different heads of all their different member states met to decide on their budget moving forward for the next 5 years, and also whether or not they were going to commit to the International Space Station. And thankfully, they were able to commit. They were the last of the major partners to commit to the new 2024 date of utilizing the International Space Station before its planned retirement. So I'm really happy about this because that means that that is official, that the International Space Station is going to continue to be used until at least 2024. All of the different partners that are involved with the International Space Station agree. So I'm very happy about that. But there were other couple things that I wanted to mention that were decided on in the European Space Agency budget. One of the things has to do with their ExoMars rover, which was going to be the follow-on to the Trace Gas Orbiter, which we've been talking about, which had the Schiaparelli lander, which unfortunately wasn't able to land. But with this, they are going to continue to fund the ExoMars rover and the lander that would be able to take it to the surface. However, it's going to be pushed back. They were planning on originally having it go to Mars in 2020, or rather to launch in 2020. And it doesn't look like they're going to have the earliest time that they will be able to with the new budget would be 2024. But they do want to continue with the ExoMars project and using rovers. Some other things that I wanted to mention was they have a really cool suborbital, not suborbital, but they tested a space plane, a lifting body type space plane called their Intermediate Experimental Vehicle, which launched on a Vega rocket last year. And they want to convert that into a pretty much their own X-37B, and they're going to call it Space Rider. And so they're going to be doing more work on that and hopefully launching more of those and be doing more experiments and hopefully leading to on-orbit servicing and things like that. But they also decided for their own version of the asteroid redirect mission, which they call the asteroid impact mission, has been dropped, and they're not going to be funding anything towards that program. However, some member states still want to do some studies for it. And one other thing I wanted to mention is their next big rocket after Ariane 5, the Ariane 6. They are looking at an engine alternative for the Ariane 6, which runs off of liquid oxygen and methane, and they're calling that the Prometheus engine. So they're looking at doing a lot of funding towards that as an alternative to the engines that they might use, the Vulcan engines that they might use for their Ariane 6 rocket. So a lot of different interesting things there, but obviously the thing that I'm most happy about is the successful funding and commitment to use the International Space Station until 2024. So very happy about that.
Nice.
Very good news.
Yeah, quite. As I'm sure Minnie Stoge is totally excited about all that. She's a huge, huge advocate for all the science that's going on in the International Space Station right now. Yeah, if you watch Minnie Stoge's Space Pods, which you should, by the way, you should watch the Space Pods, maybe even donate to the Space Pods, patreon.com/spacepods. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. In any case, so Jaron.
Yes.
We have more outer space things?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about something you can't see.
Okay.
Dark matter.
Like love?
Like love? Oh,
like or Ben?
Yeah, like Ben right now.
There's that too.
Yeah. Well, there's this thing called dark matter in our universe, and we don't really know how to explain it all that well. We call it dark matter because it does not give off what we would call electromagnetic radiation, which is a way of describing light. So it does not give off any sort of light that we can tell.
Okay.
Or at least as we understand light.
Sure.
But we can see its influence because gravity gravity actually pulls on things, and its gravity will bend light.
It's very emo. It's very dark.
I know.
Very heavy.
It's like, man, I just don't want to really be seen anywhere, dude.
Okay,
So there was a survey by the European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope,
Yes.
Which very aptly named because it is massive, and it's shown that the distribution of dark matter may actually be smoother than we expected. Now, this was called the Kilo Degree Survey, and what this survey did is they looked at light from 15 million galaxies using the Very Large Telescope's incredible optics and instrumentation. And what they ended up discovering is that the distribution of dark matter, they thought it would be very clumpy. So there would be little bits here, little bits there.
You're calling this not clumpy.
Yeah, that's not very clumpy in terms of the distribution that you're looking at there.
Okay.
And what you're looking at there is an image of the rendering of, if you could see the dark matter, this is the distribution of how it would look. And
what sort of scale would this be?
This would be about 440 full moons in size if you put this on the sky. So this is a very big patch of the sky. Mm-hmm. That's big. That's ridiculous in terms of the size of the sky they were looking at. That's not even all of it either.
Right.
That's just a little. That's just what I can fit on the slide.
Fingers.
Yeah, a fingers worth of sky.
I learned that from Jared.
Yeah. So that's a lot of sky, and they found out that it's smoother than it should than they received from other data. So if you look at the European Space Agency's Planck telescope and their data, it's different from what that spacecraft's data was telling us.
Right.
So now they've got to go back to the models and they've got to potentially rethink how dark matter got distributed in the early universe in order to explain this. So just an interesting result. We have something that doesn't agree with another result that we have. So they're going to have to figure it out. And that's one of the cool things about science is that if you get results that clash with each other, then you actually get to do real science. That's when the real science happens. That's when you begin to actually figure things out. And you get to go back and look at how to remodel things, or do we need to change how we think about something? So just a little heads up that dark matter kind of not expecting how we were expecting it to be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting.
Mike.
So
I have no good transition for this.
Yeah,
this sucks.
me neither.
2016 has sucked a whole lot, and this is just one more thing, and it sucks. And I don't have a good transition. So I'm sorry, Mike. Not just be like, that.
Yeah.
But Mike.
a lot of you probably have already heard the news, but the last of the Mercury 7 astronauts, John Glenn, passed away on Thursday, December 8th. And it's very sad that we lost him. I had only heard that morning, Thursday, that he had gone into the hospital, and a lot of us were watching Buzz Aldrin as he was in his hospital stay. And he was 95 years old when he died, John Glenn, and just what an incredible career that this man had. I mean, he served so many different combat missions in World War II and the Korean War, which gave him a distinguished career and was able to allow him to be part of that first group of astronauts. And the first mission that he did, the first American to orbit the Earth in 1962, was just such a risky mission. I mean, Alan Shepard's mission was also risky, but his was also very risky. The first Mercury to launch on an Atlas rocket and the first to orbit the Earth. So many things could have gone wrong, and everything went well with that. And he also had the awesome opportunity years later in 1998 to fly on the space shuttle at the age of 77 as a study to see what the effects of microgravity were on the elderly. And just what an incredible man. And even, I remember at his 50th anniversary of his first flight in his Mercury 7 capsule, he gave us speeches, and he was still just as sharp as ever and was still making jokes and was so excited about the state of the space industry now. And something that really touched me was that just last week he had written a letter to Jeff Bezos saying how touched that he was that Bezos named his new rocket the New Glenn rocket, and wished them all the success, and is just so excited about that. And that really is amazing that this man was able to have such an amazing career, and not even to mention as a senator for Ohio, and the great things that he was able to do for that state and for the space program as a senator. And even to the very end, being so excited and optimistic and positive towards the space industry and the future of humanity's adventure in space. And I'm sorry for getting so teared up here, but the entire world is gonna miss him, and Godspeed, John Glenn.
He was a huge advocate. He did quite a bit. He will be missed, but he led a very full life.
Quite.
Like, you can't. That's definitely not one that was wasted by any means, if you will.
Definitely not.
All right, Jared, one more time.
Yes.
Off this planet for just a nanosecond.
Okay, so trying to pick up a little bit after that, LIGO, the laser interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory is turning back online. It moved out of engineering mode and back into observation mode at 1600 UTC on November 30th. Now, you may remember LIGO from earlier this year, which during the first run of LIGO from September 2015 to January 2016, they provided the first direct evidence of gravitational waves by direct detection of one. And they ended up actually detecting a second wave during that time as well. Now, LIGO has undergone upgrades to increase its sensitivity by 25%, and it's now being called Advanced LIGO for that reason. So pretty cool that they've turned it back on, and they're now looking for gravitational waves, and it's even more sensitive than it was before when we found gravitational waves with it. So it should be interesting.
This is that cool heartbeat. Yeah. Which also reminds me of like Star Trek, the doors opening.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little
kind
bit.
of sounds a little bit like it.
Yeah, like that. That's what it reminds me of.
Pretty cool stuff.
Star Trek is real. That's all I have to say about that.
Just in case you guys wanted to know. It's a documentary.
Yeah.
So.
Duh. In case there was any question. All right. I think that was enough. I think we need a little bit of a break. And when we come back, Ben will be joining us. Actually, Ben won't be joining us. We're going to go away. And Ben is going to be doing an interview with, is it Justin Park? There we go. Justin Park from, oh my goodness, I didn't write it down. intergalacticeducation.com. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation, this girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking, she's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Through the heat, keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking, she's fire walking to be free.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. Now, before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to all of the patrons of Tomorrow. These are people who have contributed $10 or more to this specific episode to get access to absolutely everything. We've also got our Patreon producers. These are people who've contributed $5 or more to this specific episode. If you'd like to find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of Tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We've got Justin Park from Intergalactic Education here to talk about an upcoming Kickstarter called Space World. Justin, thank you so much for joining us this Saturday.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ben.
So tell me, first off, who is Intergalactic Education?
So we're a game company. We've been building a game called Space World for a while now. I originally started the company when I was living in Switzerland. I had a couple of interns from the International Space University. That's where I went for school as well. And now we're located in downtown Washington, D.C. area. I've got a couple of interns from American University and the University of Baltimore. Those students are in school for game design. And so, yeah, we're building a game about the space industry. So I've been watching your show now for many years. And yeah, you guys were actually one of the inspirations I had for getting into this industry to begin with. And so I wanted to build a computer game about the space industry because it seems like things are always about 2 years from now. And so the game itself goes into the future at 24 times the speed. And so this is important because if you play the game for a year, you're 24 years into the future, so you can have lots of cool things. The game also, this helps put a perspective on how long it takes to do a deep space mission. So if you want to send something to the moon, for example, normally it takes about 3 days. So in the game, it takes about 3 hours. So you send your rocket, you come back in 3 hours, and it's there. But if you want to do a Mars mission in advance, it takes about a week for your payload to get there in the game. And so, Space World is one of these games that actually plays even when you're not playing it. The information is stored in a database offline or online, and so the game just is always playing. And so if you want to do a deep space mission, you better be prepared with the resources and make sure that you're astronauts aren't getting too much radiation or they're going to be in trouble.
So if the game is true to life, does that mean it will always be 2 years out and you'll never actually be able to buy it?
Probably not. So, yeah, one of the things you do in the game is you collect research and development points. And so you do those by answering math questions. And then there's also a series of mini games that you can do. And so you use your research and development points to help NASA do analyses. You help SpaceX unlock the Falcon Heavy. You can help Blue Origin unlock the New Glenn and the New Shepard. You can help Virgin Galactic unlock their spaceplane. And so, yeah, we're focusing on real companies. And so there's also the opportunity to do contracts for the DoD. And so that's another one of the things that you have to balance out. So the DoD contracts are worth a lot of money, but then they take your reputation points down. And so that's actually, you don't want to go below 0 reputation points or the world goes to war because you did too many military contracts and you have to start over. And so you counterbalance that by doing space exploration contracts and building things on the lunar surface.
So describe for me a little bit of the point of the game, right? So it's based on for realsies space and actual space agencies and all of that stuff, but there's got to be a story or an end game. What am I trying to accomplish while playing the game?
Yeah, so you start the game out in January 2017. There's a new president coming into the office, and he tasks you with putting the first female on the moon by the end of the decade. It's something that hasn't been done before. I think that's something that, we need to do. I think it's something that NASA could do. If we did it in the 1960s in a decade, we should be able to do it now in about half the time. One of the things that you want to be able to do is have enough reputation points so that if you do manage to get enough people there, you can start a new government and become the president of the new country that you start on the moon. That's kind of one of the more distant goals. Other more immediate goals is you pick out which Google Lunar X Prize team you want to back. And so winning the Google Lunar X Prize is one of the first goals of the game, even before getting a female to the moon by the end of the decade. The game also allows you to do other things. If you want to try and do a Mars Direct, you can certainly do that. It's not easy. But there are a lot of different paths into the future that the player can take.
So we're watching some of the gameplay right now, and early on we saw some math equations being solved. Is that part of what the gameplay is? There's an educational component here as well?
Definitely. So in order to get your research and development points, you have to answer algebra questions. We picked out algebra questions because we're also marketing the game to schools. We're testing the software out at middle school in Southern Maryland right now. So we've got about 100 students who are playing the game and getting a feel. And we're also getting feedback from the teacher because the questions that the students are answering are actually real questions from their textbook. And so the teacher can grade the software a lot faster because we have a separate application that allows them to do that. I wanted to build the game, but at the same time, I wanted to build a company. And so a lot of investors aren't so interested in building a computer game, but if you tell them we're an ed tech company and we're trying to improve, the math education system in America, then they're a lot more inclined to listen to what you're trying to do. And so, we've just been trying to get as much traction as we can from teachers because I feel like this is a game that students should see. If they see all of the cool things that are going on in space, it might inspire them to go into one of the STEM fields, and who knows, they're going to be the engineers that are going to be taking us to Mars someday.
How's that traction been going? What's the response been like thus far?
Pretty good. A lot of schools don't like to pay for the software, but for now we're just trying to get traction. One of the other things that I've been doing recently is applying for grant money from the Department of Education and the National Science Foundation. They also have opportunities for small companies like ours to develop this type of software.
Neuropilot has an interesting question, which is what happens if you goof the metric unit conversion? I assume the game uses metric as opposed to imperial units.
Metric.
Yeah.
We don't use feet because it just, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I remember you guys doing a poll on your show as to whether or not to use feet, and we're not going to use pounds or any of that. It just is kind of silly.
So that's one of the things you have to do in the game is you have to figure out how to speak metric as opposed. So if you're in the United States and you're used to the imperial units, that's not going to help you in the game. I mean, obviously with basic algebra you're fine, but if you're trying to do like actual speed conversion, you'll be basically meters per second, so forth and so on.
Yep, kilometers per second usually if you're in space. But yeah, I mean that's just something. We might have it as like a tooltip. If you hover over it, then you can see the conversion to miles per hour. But it's really something that, I don't. I think it's time for the United States to understand what it is to be in kilometers per second.
Good luck with that. We tried that once before. It did not go over so well. All right. Ministoj is asking, do you plan to bring this to Australia? Our Australian correspondent, of course, asking.
So in the beginning of the game, there's a region select. Right now we're focusing on North America, but we'll have stretch goals in our Kickstarter campaign that will be for the other regions. And so Australia is part of the Eastern Pacific region, and so they get lumped in with India, who has a very strong aerospace program, in Japan. We definitely don't want to exclude any particular country from Space World, but this space is now something that is accessible to every country.
Dariachi asks, you talk about working with schools. Is it going to be available outside of schools? So if one of the citizens of tomorrow wants to play, can they grab it?
Yeah, we're going to have a commercial version. The school version will be focused a lot more on the algebra questions. There's things in the storyline that we want to do that are a little more controversial that we won't be able to have in the student edition. For example, you get contracted by the Catholic Church to build a church on the moon. And so that's not something I think we can have it in the school. There's parents that are not going to like that. So that'll be, specifically in the commercial version. Other things, birthing the first child in space. That's something that's kind of controversial as well, and I think it's something that will be important. If you think about it, eventually there's going to be a baby that's born in space, and that baby's, people are going to know the name of that child for the end of time. It's just if you look at the reaction of what happened to, when John Glenn passed, everybody knew about it. And so I think when the first child is born in space, that is going to be a major milestone. And in Space World, it's something that you can try as soon as you have the research and development points. You might want to be careful because you do lose reputation points if people die in space. That's one of the ways we balance the game out.
You're talking about the points, and I think this question from Space Kyle kind of talks to that, which is, do you have to answer math questions in real time to successfully launch?
Yes, math questions are built into the launch and landing processes, mini games, I guess you could call them, in the game. The one that doesn't require you to answer math problems is the Falcon 9 first stage landing game, because it's already kind of hard. You have to maneuver your first stage back and land on the barge. And we've been testing that out, and the students only have about a 50% landing rate, which I guess is kind of accurate if you look at the record that SpaceX has had so far. And that'll be something that if you use enough research and development points, you'll be able to automate it so that it's successful more often, and you won't even have to do the mini game. But in the beginning, we want to make the game as fun as possible, and so there's all of these different games that add to the entertainment value of Space World.
Speaking of the difficulty level, Cameron's asking, can you choose a grade level, or is it all just kind of one level of math? And
Yeah, well, we decided to focus on algebra first because we're only a 5-person team. We'd like to add more educational, a range of educational content, going up to calculus and maybe down to simple math, like addition and subtraction. But for now, you come in and it's algebra level, which most kids start algebra in their freshman year of high school. We're testing with the 8th grade because they're the honor students, and we thought we might get better feedback from them.
So Joe Bu asks, with the game featuring real companies, how involved have you been with those companies in the development of the game?
Yeah, so I've been talking to some people at Blue Origin. Just last week, I shook hands with Jeff Bezos, and I told him I'm building a computer game about you. He was in DC for the Arthur C. Clarke Awards, and so, yeah, he said that sounds exciting. He likes games, and he introduced me to some people at Blue Origin that actually I knew from some previous space conferences that I had been to. But yeah, I go pretty far back with Will Pomerantz. I've known Will for about 10 years, and so yeah, I'm hoping Virgin will be one of our premier partners, and then yeah, I know a few people at SpaceX too, I guess, like you.
So speaking of some of those, will you be including speculative or future planned missions like ESA's, the European Space Agency's Moon Village, Mars One's plans to go to Mars, or SpaceX's, what is it, the Interplanetary Transport System? So
yeah, we're already, we have the Moon Village built into the storyline already. The Mars One, well, they just had to delay this week, but yeah, the Mars One people, we'll definitely have a little bit about them. They haven't released any specs on the hardware that they're intending on using. We have been modeling a lot of the rockets that exist now already. We have the New Glenn already modeled in stages as well, because there's an animation where when you're launching into space, you can see the individual stages drop off when you put payloads into space. We've got a lot of different space modules too. We've modeled a lot of the Bigelow Aerospace modules. We've got the ISS. We've even got a Skylab if you want to go back and put a Skylab module on one of the new heavy lift rockets that you can unlock with enough research and development points.
Does it fail when you first deploy it and then you have to go and rescue it as well?
There'll certainly be a probability that you can that it might fail and that you might have to fix it if you don't put enough research and development points into it in the beginning. So
that'd be bring giant space blankets. Try to keep it cool. Yeah. Space Cookie has more of a comment than a question, maybe a feature request, as it were, which is, would like something like this, but also with the ability to run your own rocket and vehicle designs. Fully custom CAD, not just like modules with Kerbal Space Program. So basically, they want to build their own rockets from scratch, not just from modules. That'd be kind of cool, and a really neat learning technique.
We want to be able to do that. I think 3D modeling is a tool that kids are going to be very good at, and that by the time they become, seniors in college, they'll have 10 years of 3D modeling experience. I think that's a skill that we really want to, start teaching kids at a young age. I have wanted to put a function like that into the game for, since the inception, but it's hard. We're a 5-person team. And so to build a 3D modeling application, like an AutoCAD, it's quite a challenge. We might have it so you can upload 3D models from AutoCAD or from some 3D modeling tool, and then we take it from our website, and then if we put it through the approval process, or we'll have maybe some kind of online voting, we could stick those modules into the game, because we're developing with a tool called Unity 3D. And Unity 3D allows you to build computer games. You can import models from all kinds of different environments. We use Blender a lot because it's an open source 3D modeling tool. But yeah, Unity can take 3D models from lots of different environments. And so, if that's one other option that doesn't require us to do so much development in terms of the in-game 3D modeling.
Johnny Boy asks, what platforms are supported by the games?
So right now we're focusing on PC. We'll have the game on Steam, but because we're building the game with Unity 3D, that allows us to very easily export the game to iOS and Android. We actually just had our first alpha version. We started, that's running now on iPad. We got that working yesterday even. It was Tuesday, we started on Tuesday, and now it's finally working. There's a few glitches where the videos won't run properly, but everything else pretty much works. It connects to the database, and the game runs. So that's the important part.
All right, I'm going to combine two questions for this last one, which is from Anomin, basically like Anonymous, and Space Mike, which is basically, when is it going to be out and how much?
So we're going to be doing the Kickstarter in January. We're probably going to be asking $20, 15. We haven't decided if it's going to be 15 or 20. And then we're going to have kind of a low bar, but then we'll have lots of stretch goals because we want to build this game, but we also want to make it really awesome if we're able to raise the money to do that. And so, I would say we already have a working version, obviously, that we're testing in the schools right now, but we want to have like a commercial version. The commercial version is really going to, it's going to take some work. We want to, make sure that it's polished. And so I would say probably the middle of 2017 to the end of 2017, if we do raise a lot of money from this, because there's a lot of mini games that I have ideas that I want to include into Space World, and they'll take development time. But at the same time, the game itself should be ready, in the middle of 2017, relatively bug-free. Not relatively. We want it to be bug-free.
For people who are interested, where can they get more information on the upcoming Kickstarter and what you guys are working on?
If you go to spaceworld.us, that's our homepage. It'll redirect you to intergalacticeducation.com. We found that a lot of people were typing in intergalactic wrong because it's kind of a tricky word to spell. And then if you click on our news, it'll take you to our Facebook page, and that's where we post pretty regular updates about every other day with new content, videos. We'll be redirecting people to the Kickstarter as well. We're intending on having videos every day featuring the different companies that are going to be in the game. And that way people become aware of all the cool stuff that these space companies are doing.
All right, very cool. Now, before we go into break, I have 6 quick questions. Just first thing that comes to your mind, no wrong answers, just a way to get the different opinions from different guests. All right, are you ready?
Yep.
All right, first one, Moon or Mars first?
Moon for sure.
Liquid or solid propellants?
I like liquid.
What should be the name of the first vehicle going to Mars?
Shoot, I already wrote this down because I knew.
No cheating.
I knew you were going to ask me these questions, and I actually prepared, but then I forgot the sheet that I prepared, so now I just have to cheat here. I don't know. Let's see here. Be like, I don't know, something not too philosophical, but I don't know, like the Ark or something.
Why the Ark? Why would?
It's kind of philosophical, I guess. It has to do with biblical times, I don't know. I should have probably found that sheet that I had prepared, but No,
I like this better. No preparing, just like right off the top of your head. It gives you a really good insight into. I'm gonna have to start.
That's the one that I thought about before, because I don't know. In Space World, you can name it whatever you want. We allow you to name your rockets and your robots when you build or procure them, and so you can name your rockets whatever you want.
When do you think humans will first land on Mars?
Mars, there's cycles, and so there's certain times that you can get there a lot easier than others, but probably in the early 2030s. Mars is really hard.
All right, so then
yeah.
when do you think humans will first land on the moon? Well, no, we know when they first landed on the moon. Let me actually ask the correct question as it's written, which is, when do you think humans will set foot on the moon again?
Yeah, I'd like to say before the end of the decade. That's the kind of the point of the game. And hopefully, someone in Donald Trump's transition team sees the game and says, "Oh, maybe that's a good idea." I would say realistically, probably in the early 2020s, maybe 2022. We'll see. There's going to hopefully be a new goal for the administration. And so, yeah, I hope that the moon is high on their agenda.
And why space?
I think space holds the next market. There's people out there that believe, people like myself who believe that there's $1 trillion industry out there. We've built essentially nothing, and if you think about all of the value that could come from, oxygen manufacturing and the entertainment, if you were to build, a space superdome, that's one of the things you can do in Space World is once you've built this superdome, it unlocks a game called Spaceball. And Spaceball is, something I think a lot of people think is cool because you can take another person and you can throw them 3 meters into the air. That's kind of entertaining. And so, yeah, it's just important. I think it's going to be a stepping stone for us politically as well. The governments of the world now, they're pretty good, but they definitely have their shortcomings. And I think creating a new government in space is something that will be a big stepping stone for humanity. It inspires us. It's just very important. I think people sometimes they get too concerned with what's going on in their day-to-day lives, and they forget, that the Earth is just a very small place, and we're going to reach a point in our future where we'll look back and it'll be hard to imagine, being stuck on Earth for as long as we've been here.
People forget to look up. I've been saying that a lot. Justin, thank you so much for spending time on this Saturday and talking about your awesome game. One more time, where can people go to find more information?
You can go to spaceworld.us.
Awesome. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, comments from last week's show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We've always looked to the stars. They guide us, give us comfort, help us find our way. We see ourselves out there. When we look up, it inspires us. And we long for something we don't yet know. We yearn to go there. So, we venture forth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not.
Many think we stopped exploring. But we know our journey didn't end.
T-minus 1 minute.
We've only just begun.
Orion is functioning perfectly at this point.
Come with us and explore tomorrow.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Now, before
Welcome back.
Yes, back.
Thanks.
Literally back right there.
Okay.
Now that we're back, before we get to the final segment of our show, we first want to thank our Patreon patrons. By looking at our Tomorrow Premiere members, these folks give us $10 or more per episode. And of course, our Tomorrow producers, who give us $5 or more per episode. But wait, there's more. We've also got our Tomorrow Plus members. These folks give us $2.50 or more per episode, and they get early access to After Dark and the show itself. And then, of course, is our Tomorrow Patrons. These folks give us up to $2.49 per episode. They get their name in the show, access to Google Hangouts, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. Now, go ahead and, as Ben likes to say, circle your name if you see it there. If you can, I can't.
Someone said they did that. They're like, oops, I did that in Sharpie.
So if you would like to help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. And now I'm back with everybody here. Oh my gosh. Everybody's at the table.
Whoa, how's
Weird.
it going, Gary?
This is bizarre. This feels awkward.
Does it?
Yeah.
I mean, really?
We could all stare silently at the camera to make it even more awkward.
Sure, let's
Ready?
do it.
I can't do it anymore.
All right, Capcom, get us in the comments.
I broke first. Sorry, my bad. So last week's show, we did 2016 in review. We covered a lot of good things, a couple of bad things.
No, space in 2016. I mean, other than deaths, but space in 2016 was pretty decent.
Sure, and loss of rockets, it was fine.
Okay, well,
Just saying, we covered a lot of
perfect.
things.
we covered a lot of things.
Nobody's
You're right.
perfect.
Fine.
Read
So,
it.
this first comment comes off of Patreon. I had to remind myself not to call this man Richard Hammond. This is one comes from Jason Hammond.
Wait,
I'm guessing no relation.
Richard Hammond.
Yeah,
From Top Gear.
really?
Oh, that's right.
It's like you don't even pay attention.
It's like I don't even pay attention.
Jason says, thank you, Jason. Favorite space moment of 2016 personally was the epic road trip I made to CRS-9, the first rocket launch and landing I've seen in person. That would be super epic. I can totally understand that. However, for the industry, my favorite was that brief period of 8 humans in space. The population count is one of the basic measures of success in my books.
I think that's a really good point.
Yes.
It's really cool, that we had 8 in space, although we've had more than that in space when shuttle was flying.
Yeah, I think 14 was the maximum.
Yeah. What? No, go ahead. What is it, Dada?
I think it was 12, I thought.
I thought it was 14.
Okay.
I thought it was 13.
All right, we've got 12,
anything.
12 with Dada, 13 with Space Mike. He thinks it's 14. I thought it was 14 as well.
Wasn't there a Tiangong mission going at the same time as a shuttle mission visiting the ISS? I swear there was.
Tiangong wasn't flying. The shuttle was retired before Tiangong.
All right.
Okay.
So, Citizens
13.
Tomorrow.
13.
Space.com says 13.
Oh, well, Space Mike, you win. Ding, ding, ding. All right.
Yeah.
Woo. Yes, I think it's very cool that happens. Also very sad that is the maximum number that we've ever had in space. And we need to start working on fixing that, because if we want to live and work in space, the number needs to be more than 13 concurrent people in space.
Yes.
Right? It should be hundreds, if not thousands of people working in space. It'll be baby steps, of course, because space wants to kill us.
Baby steps.
To be fair, nature wants to kill us too. Everything wants to kill you.
Yeah, basically.
Right. Next up, Capcom.
Next one comes off of Twitter, actually. Again, this is
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone's flipping out. This one comes from Space Publica. Space Publica? Space Publica? Says everyone is an astronaut.
Isn't that adorable? Although
Oh
I have a
my
gripe.
gosh.
I have a gripe. It's hard to see from here, but there is a worm logo on the baby's arm, and the proper meatball logo, because the worm logo is never proper. The proper meatball logo on the belly. No, meatball over worm. Worm.
It's okay to be wrong.
Oh, no. NASA at their greatest, meatball logo.
Okay. I don't care. I still think the worm looks a lot better.
No, there's something just more magical and more like futuristic almost about the meatball logo. It's got the cool
It doesn't
swoosh.
get any more futuristic looking than the worm,
No,
though.
the worm. No, it's just a swoopy thing.
Yes, that is just pure, beautiful
Very retro,
graphic
though.
design.
Seeing the worm logo, though, definitely gives me nostalgia from the 80s.
Yes.
Yeah, 8. Okay. Leave your comments. Worm or meatball? What is your preference?
Yes. Worm.
Right now, it's warm in the chat room. So.
No,
Yes.
why are you all wrong? Leave your preference as long as it's meatball. No, well, hang on. Do you legitimately like the worm logo more? If you just look at the two, if you were to say something other than NASA, put any other word there, would you prefer some other word like tomorrow in that worm logo?
Yes.
You would prefer tomorrow in the worm logo.
Yes, because
as opposed to the meatball logo.
Yes, because it's just overly gratuitous when you would put something like tomorrow in a meatball style logo. Because I mean, tomorrow's logo itself.
Okay. Or are you remembering the worm logo because you grew up in that era?
I had a little bit of the worm logo in my life because I was 4 when they finally switched back to the meatball.
Oh my God, just stop talking.
But
okay, no, you're done now. I don't want to hear anymore. Next up, Capcom. Jesus.
Ben's having trouble understanding that he's old.
I'm done with this conversation.
The only thing that bothers him more than that is knowing that I'm older than he is.
Yeah, like a lot. Like a lot.
Well, for 11 days out of the year, it's 2 years older than you.
Next up, Capcom. I'm sorry, do you need me to say that louder?
No, I don't, actually. That's why I put the earpiece in your good ear. So next one comes off of YouTube. This is from Fabio Milan, saying, can anyone comment on the accuracy of the Nat Geo Mars series?
We've never landed on Mars, so that's not very accurate.
And all the people that they've talked to in 2016, they really talked to, so I guess that's accurate?
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to... The theoretical accuracy of landing on Mars, I guess, I mean, it felt correct-ish. I don't know.
I don't know. The first episode, I've only seen the first episode so far, and I really love the documentary parts of it.
Yeah,
that's what I said.
But the mission parts of it are very Hollywood, and I'm not really a big fan of somebody advertising themselves an accurate depiction of what a Mars mission would actually be like, and then it's very Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have, it is Hollywood, but there doesn't seem to be much science I'm seeing that's terribly wrong.
Here's the thing. That's exactly what I think the right point
it's
there.
It's little
the science
things,
is essentially correct.
But it's little things like you don't have lights inside your helmet pointing at your face.
This series is not for the people sitting at this table, including Mike and Dutta.
That's
it
right.
is not for
He's sitting
us.
at the table, just in a weird way.
But you see my point. It's not for us.
Who's it? Okay, who's it for?
Because if it was for us, it wouldn't be on Nat Geo. It's
for the general public.
It's for the general
everybody
public.
else.
It's for. This is going to sound terrible, but it's for everybody else who doesn't know about tomorrow, right? It's for everybody else who's not actually that interested in space. It's for everyone else who says, "Oh, well, I mean, NASA shut down when they stopped flying the shuttle." It's for those people. It really is. Yeah. And in that way, as long as the science is still basically correct, I cannot fault them for that. I can't.
And I feel like it's also like kind of riding on the success of movies like The Martian of, hey, while there's some general interest in stuff like this, let's see if we can, grab some attention and show them what the actual science is like. Even if this isn't, entirely accurate, with the dramatizations or whatever, the documentary part is legit. So I think that this is just another way, because we all have our things that, whatever it was that reignited our passion in space, because I'm sure that a lot of us, like most people, had at least an interest in space as a kid, and then got interested in other things. And whatever it was that reignited your interest in space, like looking back on it now, might not be the most scientific or the most accurate thing ever, but it was enough. It was just enough to get you to delve a little bit deeper. And I feel like the point that you're making, Carrie Ann, is something like this is enough to grab people's attention and have them delve just a little bit deeper into the space world and see what's going on.
So I'll say yes to everyone, but to fundamentally answer the question, it seems like the science, I haven't actually, because it's so Hollywood and because it is a storyline, I haven't actually looked at that. I suspend disbelief, right? I go into those moments of the show, and I go into suspended disbelief because that's how it's presented to me, is suspended disbelief. So I never looked at it like, oh, is all of this science accurate? Because it wasn't presented to me that way. I should go back and actually look and be like, okay, well, how accurate are all of these things? But on the surface, I'm not able to think of anything major that would be wrong.
I would say that's true.
right? There are times where you watch a movie and you're like, nope, that is not how microgravity works at all. But yeah, I mean, I think they got a...
Overall, it's not bad.
Yeah, overall, it's not...
It's pretty good overall.
Would this kind of be a fairly accurate representation of what it might be like? Yes. The dialogue and the commander acting like this all of the time is annoying, but that's personal preference and not to accuracy of the film. As someone said, I think it was Tars, who runs our designed and runs our chat room, basically said, my mom can't watch TMRO, but she does watch Mars. And that's fair, right? Just as TMRO is not going to be for everyone out there. I mean, I kind of wish everyone out there would love and watch it. But then anyhow, I'll talk to that point. Remind me to talk to PewDiePie in After Dark. Yep. So just as everyone won't talk about watch TMRO, not everyone is going to watch Mars either, and they serve different markets, and that's probably okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, next up, Capcom.
Next one comes from, and I love this name, off of YouTube, comes from Jet Quasar.
That's a scary PyCon.
Did you want to do this?
No, go ahead.
You never mentioned the relaunch and landing of the Blue Origin suborbital rocket, the first time a spacecraft has been completely reused after a launch into space and booster stage landing. This was actually done several times in 2016.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
We did gloss over that.
We did. And, well, I mean, yes, you're right. It was awesome.
It was.
No, there are really no buts with that. It was awesome. It was really quite awesome and inspiring.
Yeah.
And true to the word, it was awe. It inspired awe.
This is what happens when sometimes Ben just says, hey, so we're going to talk about this. What do you think right now? Give me your answer right now. That's what happens, is that you don't have enough time to think about something, and there are major moments like that sometimes get missed. 2016 is a really big year. A lot of stuff happened, and I'm sure there are other moments that we completely missed.
But that's okay. I mean, that's where we leave the comments open to you, the citizens of tomorrow.
This is how you keep us true to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, there's another comment in here that does exactly that. The very last comment's like, you idiot. Yeah, no, you're totally right. It was a really awesome moment, and I am glad that you enjoyed it. And
we did too.
We did too. Yeah, I think it was really great. The other thing that I really thought was great in 2016 is Blue Origin started webcasting.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Oh, that was one of my top. Yes. We get to see this stuff now. So that was really cool.
That was sweet.
Yep. All right, next up.
Next one, also off of YouTube, comes from I can't say it. Gideon Nebelsick, I believe.
I think I like the name Gideon because of the show Mr. Robot.
Yeah, Gideon is a great
name. Gideon is in all. I didn't even know that was a name. And then I heard it on the show. I'm like, ooh, that's kind of neat. And then we got a comment. I'm pretty sure Gideon. Oh, no. This is a legitimate comment, but he got more weight for going into the comments because I think Gideon is an awesome name.
All right.
Anyhow.
Apparently that's how you get comments to the show, everyone.
Just rename yourself Gideon.
Changing their
really
usernames
cool name.
now.
Yep. Next week's shows, every commenter will be from Gideon. A Gideon of sorts.
Oh, goodness. Says, can we acknowledge how cool Tori Bruno is with Rocket Builder? My favorite moments were CRS-8, First Barge Landing, and NROL-45, since I love how the Delta IV sets itself on fire.
It does.
Yes, it does.
It so does, too.
Okay, now I will launch.
So the space shuttle had those sparklers underneath the engine. Mm-hmm. That was to burn off all the excess hydrogen so that as the vehicle launches, you don't have this huge cloud of explosion happening around the vehicle.
Yeah.
The Delta IV and Delta IV Heavy also has those sparklers.
Doesn't work as well.
They're not even close. They light those engines and just these huge hydrogen fires around the vehicle. The foam is burning and charred at the bottom. And you look at engine ignition and there's just massively huge fireball erupting from the rocket.
When actually me and Dutta have seen a Delta IV Heavy launch
from Vandenberg.
In person at Vandenberg.
It's worse in Vandenberg for some reason.
Yeah, and when it was going up, you could see the char marks on the side of it in this cell bar, increasing cell signal size. When they were like, we're going to change the way that the RS-68 engines turn on so that it doesn't burn itself. Nope, it still burned itself. It's just that instead of it charring evenly, it made this nice little pattern of like small, medium, big char marks on the side of the rocket. It was pretty great.
Oh my God.
It was amazing.
I do every time those engines ignite. I'm like, oh my God! What happened? And then it just lifts off the pad. The foam's burning, like the engines are burning, and so is the side of the rocket.
Yes, sometimes the side of the rocket will actually be on fire
for
while
a
it's
while.
flying through it.
For a while.
Yes.
It's all that I do think because of that might be one of my favorite rockets to launch. Is just because of how long the foam is burning on those rockets.
I was watching a launch at home with Kitty, and this was the first Delta IV that she had seen, and the engine's light and it catches itself on fire, and she's like, "Oh God, what is it? It's go on fire." I'm like, "It's okay.
It's what it does."
It's okay.
Can you imagine being an engineer that worked on the design and development of a Delta IV, and it's the very first launch of one of these Delta IVs, and you see it just go whoosh, and this giant fireball on the path. The rocket itself is on fire where it's not supposed to be, and you're just sitting there going, "Flight is nominal." Nominal trajectory, nominal speed. Actually, I don't think the first Delta IV Heavy was nominal, was it? It was.
No, that was a problem later in the flight.
Oh yeah. So off the pad, you'd be like, "Oh, we're nominal. Are we nominal? It doesn't look quite right." So anyhow, yeah. What else did Gideon say? Oh yeah, the rocket builder. That is a pretty neat website.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool, but I guess I don't get it. Right. So if I'm spending $100 million plus on a rocket, I don't really feel like I want to go to an Amazon type cart to buy.
Why not?
I think that this was more a exercise in transparency. And, a lot of people have been quoting the most expensive price for an Atlas V rocket, which is upwards of $360 million, when comparing the prices of ULA to SpaceX. So I think that this is just like, no, that's not exactly, not every single launch is going to be a minimum of $360 million. And that's just my opinion, but that's what I feel like the purpose of this is kind of for the general space industry to just be like, okay, I want to get a price on, an Atlas V or a Delta IV. What would this, roughly cost me for something, and to get a better idea of how much they cost, and to try to see them, having competitive prices, so to speak.
I guess. I mean, the rocket. Don't get me wrong. It's neat. The thing is that where they're getting the most heat isn't for the commercial launches, because if they were price competitive, guess what? They'd launch more commercial stuff. Where they're getting the most heat are the government launches, and guess what? The rocket builder doesn't give you the pricing on the government launches. The second problem is they include the ULA value add, which is just some random. I think they just take the cost of the rocket, multiply it by 3, and say that's United Launch Alliance's value add at $300 million. And it's just this weird. Have you guys played with the rocket builder?
I've played
it's
with it
weird, right? It's a little weird.
There's that variable where I'm like, what's that all about?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I deselected all of the bonus features, and I ended up having like a Delta 5, or excuse me, a Delta 4 with the 5 solid rocket boosters in like the heaviest configuration for like $88 million. I'm just like, I doubt this could actually go through.
Yeah, I tried.
Well, maybe. I mean, maybe it can. Maybe I don't know. You're right. It probably is just kind of to beat down the illusion of the Atlas and Delta line costing 2 to 3x what a Falcon line costs. But I played with it and I was like, okay, this is neat and this is fun. But if I'm buying a rocket for $100 million, I'm personally gonna call someone and be like, hi, I want to buy a $100 million rocket. Help me out.
You actually can submit.
I know.
From there.
I wonder if anyone has. There was a tweet that Tori said that there was a lot of interest and a lot of people have saved, but no one had submitted yet. I wonder if by now anyone has submitted via the rocket.
Heck, I'm going to do it should I do it during After Dark?
No, I don't think you should do it, because I don't know what your actual commit to that is.
A little bit.
No, I mean, you can't. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Last comment.
Sun comes off of YouTube. This is from Matt Rosley. The speed of sound depends on temperature, not pressure.
Yep. I said pressure.
Okay,
because
cool. With what?
With what?
Yeah, with what? This is like the most random thing ever.
Oh, we were talking about the speed of sound. I think this was actually a conversation in last week's commentary.
It was,
section.
Yeah.
It's a comment on a comment?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
Because we were talking about how JP Aerospace's balloon castles are going to be able to survive the friction, trying to get up to Mach 10 to get to
Gotcha.
get
And we were
orbit.
arguing about using Mach numbers as a measurement of speed because that Mach isn't a consistent number depending upon whether you're at sea level or up in space.
Because we were talking about ground speed versus air speed.
Right, and the speed of sound, because Mach is the speed of sound, and so I was incorrectly implying that pressure, or even stating that pressure is what adjusts the speed of sound, and that is not correct. It's actually temperature, and is directly related to temperature. I actually legitimately thought it was pressure, because if you don't have a gas for the sound to travel through, it requires something. Sound requires something to travel through, such as air or a gas or something. Even a solid, sound can actually travel through, like wood.
It tends to travel faster through solids too. So.
Right. So I thought, pressure. It is not correct. It is actually based on temperature. And when you look at a chart of sound speed at altitude, it actually does speed up and slow down. It's amazing. As you look at the temperature, it actually almost 1-to-1 follows the temperature for speed when you look at that chart. So I learned something from my own show. I had no idea. Dada, you look like you're ready to say something.
Is that based on air density as well, or no?
There's actually a formula.
Pippinois in the chat room says it's both temperature and air density.
Yeah. So it's not just.
I mean, that makes sense.
It's not one or the other.
It's air density coupled with temperature.
Yeah. Both combined.
Yes, but isn't density going to also impact temperature?
Temperature will impact density.
Yes.
But you can't have sea level air that's sub-zero freezing and your Mach number just instantaneously drops, because you still have the speed of sound isn't going to increase at sea level because you have super cold air, because you still have super high dense air.
But I think it actually will increase.
A little bit, but not the same amount.
Yeah, but the fundamental point...
It won't be the same as, 200,000 feet.
That's fair. That's fair. We're all looking off camera to Dutto. I'm excited for Orbit 10 when we have a camera in there that you can cut to. That's fair. But the point is, it's still not like the speed of light is, for the most part, constant, right? We can point to that and be like, that is a measurement. Or we have constant measurements of like this many kilometers per hour. That's a constant. Mach is not a constant. So fundamentally, Mach is not a constant. No. I incorrectly on the show stated that it was a function of pressure, and it is a function of air density and temperature. Actually, temperature and air density, I believe, would be a better way of describing that.
Yes.
And I was incorrect on the show, and I learned something, and thank you. I should have known that, and I didn't, but now I'm smarter. Awesome.
Host channel.
Host channel.
Yeah.
The Space Kyle is saying the local speed of sound and thereby the Mach number depend on the condition of the surrounding medium, in particular the temperature and pressure. Okay, right. So fundamentally the point being that Mach number is a bad way to measure like orbital velocity, in my opinion, because because orbital velocity doesn't depend on your Mach speed, it depends on your actual for realsies, like this is how fast you need to go despite air pressure or anything else. You're combating gravity, excuse me. So that's why I don't think using like Mach 10 as a way of saying, we've made orbital velocity is the correct way. You should say we're at 22,000 kilometers per hour. That would be a much better way of saying, hey, we've reached orbital velocity.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Now you could technically use both. Technically, either one would be correct. You can use a Mach number to describe saying, hey, we're at orbital velocity. I just don't think it makes as much sense as using something like 22,000 kilometers per hour or X number of meters per second. What is it, 8 meters per second? Is that right?
It's 8 kilometers per second.
8 kilometers per second.
28,000 kilometers per hour.
There we go. All right.
Yeah. There we go.
The speed of Ben is faster than light speed. Thanks, stars. All right, that is our show for this week. Next week, we've got one of the NASA, I believe it's a Centennial Challenge. It's going to be the NASA 3D Printed Habitat Challenge. That's going to be pretty cool. one of the challenges for 3D printing HABs, which is going to be one of those critical things that we're going to need to do if we are to colonize the moon and Mars or anything else out in the solar system. That will be next week. Episode 9.41 will be the last episode this year, and then we will return early January, January 7th, with Orbit 10. I'm super excited for that. So next week, last one, couple of weeks off, then Orbit 10. So I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. We'll see you in After Dark.